Hi, Savannah.
Hey, Emily.
Are you making me a Swiftie?
I'm sure gonna try. This week we are on Fearless, which is Taylor Swift's second studio album, and I'm so excited because I love this so much more than the debut album.
And from what I've heard, I don't blame you.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad that you're vindicated like you were last time.
Yeah.
So with her second studio album, she is coming into what we as Swifties call a new era. This is Taylor Swift reinventing herself for the first time that we've seen her in studio albums. It's her second album. She's reinventing herself from the first album. And in Swiftie language, we call that an era. So every album is an era. Very simple.
Okay.
Are you catching on to Swiftie lingo?
I think I'm with you. Yes.
Perfect. And in this album, she's really establishing not only that she has different eras, and we're going to see those come out and be more fleshed out in the future, but also she's really establishing her track 5 that we talked about in the last album. And then she's also has 13 songs on this album, which I think is remarkable, or she's making it remarkable. 13 is her lucky number. She was born on December 13th. She has a bunch of reasons that she likes the number 13, and we'll get to those in the future, but she's starting to establish that sort of theme as well on this album, which came out in 2008.
It sounds like it came out in 2008,
Stop.
which is not a negative thing. I shouldn't say it like that.
Tell me more about that.
You've got kind of the instrumental choices, I think, are very typical for that time, even though she's still a country artist. She's still got the banjo twang. It's taken a back seat, and she's responding musically, I think, to several other contemporary songs. For instance, Too Late to Apologize. Her song, You're Not Sorry, instrumentally very similar, and Too Late to Apologize came out the year before.
That's so interesting, because I didn't pick up on that at all, and I have heard
man.
Too Late to Apologize.
Yeah. Well, see, I listened to the Thomas Jefferson and the Revolution version.
What?
Yeah. Well, TJ and the Revo. It's like an American Revolution thing. It's a history nerd thing.
I am so not on the same page with what you were listening to. Wait, that version of Too Late to Apologize?
Yeah. So I don't actually know the original. I just know the one where they complain about their tea and the British king.
It's a spoof? You were listening to a spoof of that song?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm so sorry for inflicting my eccentricities upon you.
I just had to get mentally on board with it, and it's fine. So that explains to me why you know a bit more of like the piano portion of that song, because I think earlier...
Because it was on loop in my childhood.
Okay, so I very seriously doubt that Taylor Swift was listening to the Jefferson.
Oh, definitely
Jefferson
not. No.
version. So to me, it doesn't say I took the piano version of the Jefferson version of that song.
No, it's not the Jefferson. No. The instrumentalism is identical in both the original and the spoof.
Okay.
I have, at this point in my life, listened to the original.
I'm proud of you.
It's identical. I've grown as a person.
It's Whitney Houston all over again.
I promise I'm way cooler than I used to be. I know it seems hard to believe that I've surpassed anything in the coolness realm, but
I think you're cool. I do.
You're a good friend.
Thanks. Okay, tell me what your favorite parts were.
Favorite part of this album was the cohesive arc that it forms. Like, there's a definite story that the album itself tells. I don't necessarily love that story. I think it's really sad.
Oh, man.
But it's cohesive. It's very skillfully put together. I think it's in so many ways superior to what she released in her first album. She's reflecting on that album. So it's like her track 15, where she talks about being a freshman in high school. Remember that those are the tracks on the first album that she wrote during that time. So she's reflecting on her previous music as well as her previous life, her previous self.
Exactly.
And so it's a much mellower album. It's more retrospective. It doesn't have the same aspirational themes going through it, which surprised me because they were so strong in the first one. I was like, there's got to be some lingering effects of that. But no, she does deal with them. She kind of dispenses with that theme. She closes the book on it effectively, I think.
Yeah, I think partially because she's sort of living out what she was aspiring to.
Yeah.
She, in between the time of the release of the debut album and the release of Fearless, she has accepted an award, several awards. So she's kind of already in that zone of like, I am getting to where I want to be. I am following the aspirational track, as it were.
And she's not fixated on it. She's like, this is what I set out to do. Now I'm not going to waste time thinking about how much I want to do it. I'm just doing it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Another way that I think she's responding to contemporary music is with the song 15. The way she emphasizes the word 15 in the melody, in the cadence of the song, is almost identical to the song 100 Years by Five for Fighting. 15, there's still time for you.
Gotcha.
That song.
Yeah.
So when I was listening to Taylor Swift's song, I was like, is that the same song? And it's not the same song.
No.
But it does show her responding to the songwriting environment.
I wonder, when did that song come out? Do you know when?
I believe it was 2003. Let me double check that.
Okay, so a while back.
2004. A fair amount of time before. So it was definitely in the air. It was definitely on the radio.
Yeah. I think a lot of these songs, like to speak to what you're talking about with her taking that music into account, I think that happens naturally with songwriting. I mean, she's growing up in a certain time, just as we all do, and is being affected by the musical flavor of the time, if you will, without directly copying. I wouldn't say she's like
no, I don't think she's copying. I mean, there are several ways. So my third example, just to throw this out before we kind of dissect what we think is going on, is Love Story. Check Yes, Juliet also came out the year before this album.
Ooh.
So, and it's got the same vibes. It's not the same song at all.
No.
But it's definitely got a similarity in vibe and theme and...
of like pulling a very popular narrative and reframing
it and making it
modern.
Yeah, I was going to say contemporary. Modern works.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so like I don't think she's not just cribbing ideas, right? She's better than that.
She's better than that.
And I do believe that at this point in my Taylor Swift learning journey.
I feel like I'm already winning.
You're racking up points with this album. Not gonna lie.
It's again, the debut album sets a super low bar. So
yeah,
I'm not giving myself points by saying that. Anyway, yes, it is a good album, and I'm glad I'm racking points with you.
But I do feel she opens herself up to charges of being a little bit derivative with there being so many. But derivative isn't, I think, in an artist, a bad thing. Like, everybody starts somewhere. We have the canon of Western literature because works derive from other works. That's not a negative thing. It's just the way that art works.
We all build off of something, and that's literally every other human being that came before us and had some type of culture that we were building off of.
Yeah.
And I'll say that as she grows as an artist, her work becomes more of the derivative jumping off point for other artists in the future as well. Again, to her credit, like, she's not so young in this writing era as she was obviously on the debut album, but she is still quite young. This came out about a month before she turned 19, so she's writing these songs at 17, 18, and she's still taking in the world around her.
Yeah, you definitely sense that sort of senior je ne sais quoi.
Yeah. You mean like a senior in high school?
A senior in high school. And I think it happens again as a senior in college, where suddenly you're at the top of your given
totem pole.
Heap, totem pole.
Or
what have you. And you're about to start something new, whether that's college or a career. And your community is about to change radically, and you have occasion to reflect on the totality of your high school experience.
I couldn't put a finger on it, and you just did. It does feel very reflective, this album.
That's a good word for it.
Reflective. Yeah, because I think in the debut album, a lot of it was a lot of looking forward, not just in her career, but like looking forward to living out high school. And this does feel more reflective of looking back, sometimes with fondness and sometimes definitely
sometimes
not.
less fondness.
Less than fond.
Yeah, like the song 15, like I said, I think this song kind of closes the book on the aspirational thing. She has the line, who I was supposed to be. Like, there has that aspirational note, but now she's not thinking about what she thought then.
Right.
She's remembering that she was struggling with those ideas, but the solution to the problem is irrelevant to her now because the problem is irrelevant. She's not dealing with that problem anymore, so she's not putting energy towards that solution.
Specifically in 15, she is talking about how there's more to life than being 15, dating the boy on the football team, etc. She gives real life examples of like friends that she had and problems that they had in high school, and she's reflecting on that, but also saying like, but that's not my set of problems anymore. There's more to life than that, and I'm chasing a bigger dream than all of that, especially the relational aspect in 15 specifically.
That is interesting that she claims that. I think there's a sense in which that's absolutely identifiable in the difference between the two albums. But the story of the album, Fearless, is entirely relational.
I don't think it ends relationally, though.
I think it does. We disagree here. We'll have to talk about this.
Or I guess romantically.
Oh, yeah.
I do think it ends relationally. Yeah. I think the arc of the story is her saying, I started with all of these like wide-eyed dreams of true love and fairy tale love. And that's, we'll get into that in Love Story, but like fairy tale and White Horse, all of it together. Just very fairy tale, this like little girl imagining of what love and life is. And then her disappointments and what she has to use to fill that space that's been opened by her disappointments. That's where I think it ends.
Yeah. With White Horse specifically, she...
Our track 5,
she rejects the idealism, what she calls fairy tale thinking, and yet gives it value by her rejection. She laments that she loses that idealism. And if it's worth lamenting, it's worth having, in a sense. Not that she's committing to moving forward with the same idealism, but she does see value in it and therefore is sad that it's been broken.
Do we think she's talking a little bit about like that it's good and valuable to have like a childhood and a girlhood, and yet you can lose that, and it's something that is sad to lose, but also it's something you need to grow up?
That's a good question.
Because she does have a song on the album that talks about not necessarily growing up, but the best day.
The best day.
We love that song.
Hurts my heart because it's really good.
It's really good. But the best day is reflecting on her childhood, and I think it's about her childhood. It could be a best day with her mom in general, but I think it's...
Well, it's multiple days, right? There's like the pumpkin patch, and then there's a Thanksgiving dinner. I feel like those are two different days. I don't know.
Sure. So maybe just the best day, childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about childhood,
it's
for
about
sure.
Childhood.
Yeah.
And especially the relationship that she has with her mom, which is so precious and adorable, and we love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't say that this song is on this album and she's not giving credit to childhood, girlhood, and giving a nod to all of that, even if she has to move on from that ideal or that idea.
Yeah, it's almost like she's going back to basics with that song, right? Because she has this arc. The first 4 tracks are positive, they're romantic, they're Romeo and Juliet, except with a happy ending.
Yes.
And then we hit track 5 where it turns, and it's so clearly intentional this time that it's track 5, because the only happy song that comes after it is You Belong With Me, track 6.
Right.
So it's the turning point in the album. It's clearly meant to be in that spot. And from there, it's I've been disappointed. My dreams are shattered. It's the tragic downslope of the arc of the story that she's telling. And then she comes very close to the end with the best day, second to last track. And she's turning away from clearly the men in her life to what made her happy. Yes. She's putting everything else aside and going back and remembering her family.
And then Change comes right after that. And Change is about her... She's reflecting on accepting an award for the debut album and looking over at one of her fellow writers, Scott Borchetta, and seeing like how happy and excited he was, and like she's recognizing like you changed everything. Something that Taylor Swift does that we should talk about is she puts little Easter eggs in her lyric sheets that, back in our day when the CDs were out and they had lyric sheets,
slide them out of the jewel
slide
case.
them out. Yeah, she would like bold certain letters in her lyrics and they would spell out a message. And so she did that for several albums, I believe through 1989 she did that. So the hidden message in Change is you made things change for me. So
that's very personal.
Very personal.
And it kind of contrasts with the song in tone, because the song is less personal.
Yeah, it does. I didn't know what Change was about for a super long time. I know because I researched for this podcast episode. And I was like, I should probably figure that out. But yeah, it's super personal and, like you said, a pretty generic sounding song. But she does that for fans a lot, I think, in the Easter eggs for the hidden messages. She'll make things more clear through the clues, and it makes it more personal. Yeah,
Change to me, I'll say it's not my favorite track. I think it is the kind of song that had to come at the end of this album.
Yeah.
Because you have this, the arc that we talked about, the happy, good relationship songs, and then them all crashing down. And then coming back to the thing that gave her life in spite of all those troubles, her family. But the best day is looking back, and she wants to end looking forward because she's still got places to go. Yeah. I think at this point in pop music history, if I can call it history, it's so reasonable to expect that she is intending for her discography to have an arc of its own. She's not thinking about single songs anymore. She's not even thinking about single records anymore. I think she names this album after the first track, which is an arc. So I feel like, to me, that indicates she's self-consciously on the beginning of an arc.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, because she does mention that she names the album Fearless because she's becoming, or has become, more fearless about talking about her own life and personal stories, which we can give a chuckle to because she definitely has personal stories on her debut album.
For sure.
Where she outright names people still. Like that hasn't changed. But I think perhaps her confidence level has. She does a lot more active writing on this album than she did on the previous one. Not that she didn't write her songs, but she writes more of the songs by herself, and then she is really closely writing with another writer on this album specifically. So it feels more personal because it is.
Yeah, I still think Our Song is the standout track of the first two albums.
Really?
Yeah.
Our
think
Song from the debut album.
From the debut album. I think it musically is more interesting. There are some bops on this album for sure.
Yeah.
And I will probably never get You Belong With Me out of my head. Especially the pre-chorus, which we talked about this last time, right?
Yeah.
That she has so many pre-choruses, and I'm like, they're musically unnecessary. But this one just sticks. Like, she should have left out the chorus and just stuck with the pre-chorus. So it's a bop, but I think musically it feels less spontaneous than Our Song, which, given the story behind Our Song, that she just made it up for a talent show.
It was spontaneous.
Right.
Yeah.
And it totally comes out. And I don't feel the same musical interest, even in the best songs on this album, which are better than all of the
them.
Rest of debut album. So
that's so interesting to me, because Love Story was actually very spontaneously written.
Really?
Yeah, she wrote it within she started writing it and finished the majority of it in 20-ish minutes. Huh. She couldn't put it down.
That's interesting. Okay, so that's interesting because the one musical sort of moment of interest on this album that I remember
and gasped, if we're talking about the same moment.
We're not.
Oh, okay.
I did gasp because the lyrics went a different way, but that
made me so
wait,
happy.
It is the same moment. It's just for a different reason.
Okay, tell me your reason.
Okay, the last verse of Love Story, when it changes from Romeo Save Me, what's the line?
Oh yeah, Romeo Save Me.
I don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
When it switches to Marry Me Juliet.
Yeah.
The lyric change surprised me. That's what I gasped about when we listened to this together.
Everyone gasped at that part.
Yeah, because you don't see it coming, because it's Romeo and Juliet. They're not supposed to end up together.
Exactly. That's the point.
That's the point. But the key change there, where she takes it up, I think it's a full step.
Yeah.
It's the most she breaks from a formula, I think, on this album.
Yeah.
There's less rhythmically interesting through the rest. Remember that moment in Our Song that the rhythm changes?
Rhythmic subversion
for us. There isn't one of those on this album, but there's the key change, and the key change is powerful. It had to be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a nice song, and we've already discussed that that's the death of good music. Yeah. It's just, this is nice.
This is nice.
I will say, now that you say that, this album feels more stable. And all of the music kind of goes together and fits together better.
Yeah, it's cohesive. I think that fits with what we said about it being more mellow.
Yeah.
Like she's more stable as a person. She's not 15 anymore.
Yeah. Thank goodness. None of us want to be 15 again.
No, it's not a fun time.
No. Chaotic.
Yeah, and she even what's the song that reminisces about the volatility of a former relationship?
All of them? Oh wait, from the debut album?
No, from this album. The Way I Loved You.
Okay, I was like, there's a couple, Forever and Always is kind of volatile, but
yeah,
The Way I Loved You.
The Way I Loved You. The narrator is in a stable relationship.
Right.
And kind of wishes she weren't, because it was so much more exciting to be in a volatile relationship.
Which, before you knock Taylor Swift for writing that from like a first person standpoint, she wasn't actually writing this about a specific person.
Oh, really?
Or a couple of people.
That's so interesting.
She's actually writing with John Rich, who wrote for Faith Hill, Tim McGraw, several other.
Those are big names.
Yes, several other big. You know that they're big names.
I do. I've come so far.
So she wanted to write a song with him, and she came to him with this idea of like, I want to talk about the difference of relationships like this, and he was able to help her write it from the perspective of he's the guy that gives women a hard time, I guess, like is in the volatile relationship. Don't know what that says about him, but okay.
No, but you and I talked about this a little bit when we listened to this album, how there is a relatability of the emotions. I don't know, is this getting too personal for the recording?
No.
Okay.
When you make a podcast, everything's on the table.
Where being in love as a stable adult is
totally different
from being in love as a chaotic teenager. And there's the highs of a teenager are very high, and they're fireworks,
and the lows,
insanity, and the lows are awful. So like I support stability, I encourage stability, but like we can all look back and think, wow, it felt amazing to feel so amazing at that age.
Yeah, and I think that's really what this song is kind of about. I don't think she's she's like trying to encourage people.
Right. No, I don't think she's telling people to go into
go
bad
be in a really weird relationship. But yeah, I think it's more of a reflection of what you just said, where it's like her lyric, I miss screaming and fighting and kissing in the rain, and it's like that. No one wants to be screaming and fighting, but we all want to be kissing in the rain. Right. Do we not? That's adorable.
And if it comes with some screaming and fighting,
so be it.
Yeah. No, that is the calculus of a 15-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's one of the things we put behind us as we grow up.
Yes. I feel like this song, it's written by Tinkerbell, and I'll explain that.
Oh my goodness.
Because I feel like as teenagers, we're all Tinkerbell. We only have room for one emotion at a time in our whole body. We're little fairies, and like, if you're angry, you're only angry and you're so upset. If you're sad, you're crying on your bed in your bedroom. And if you're happy and in love, you are so elated, and there's nothing that can peel you from that person. She's Tinkerbell.
Yeah. I want a live action remake where she plays Tinkerbell.
Wouldn't that be so cute?
It would be. I'm kind of terrified though, because I know you love the existing live action remake of Peter Pan.
Which one? Hook?
No, not that one. Well, though you should love that one. It's a great movie.
It's amazing. Oh, you mean the 2003 version?
Yes.
Who was my first crush? Yes, that Peter Pan. I do love that. Yeah. The Tinkerbell, there I could take or leave. Mm-hmm. It was Peter that I loved. Yeah. But yeah, I haven't shown you a lot of interviews with Taylor Swift. And I feel like that's part of making you a Swiftie. We'll do that in the future. Okay. But she's adorable. So I do feel like she'd be a good Tinkerbell.
I can tell she's adorable because of the music video.
Okay, thank you.
For You Belong With Me.
Okay, yes, where she plays two parts.
She does, which is, I think it's the right artistic choice on multiple levels.
Tell me.
She avoids putting herself at odds with somebody else.
Right.
Because she's playing both the girl next door and the high heels.
Cheerleader.
Yeah, cheerleader girl. Like, she's not, because she's willing to play both parts, there's an implicit message of, it's not that we look down on this type of girl.
Right. Yeah. It's not bad to be a cheerleader. It's not bad to be the girl in the stands. It's just for this music video and this story.
Right. She's taking on one role. She could have taken on the other role.
Absolutely.
She could write a different song for the girl who doesn't understand her boyfriend and thinks he's a status symbol. She probably did write that song, for all I know.
You know what? Probably. There's a Taylor Swift song for everything, as we all say.
As you say.
Swifties. So maybe one day you'll say it too.
Perhaps.
But You Belong With Me was actually not even written about a relationship that she had herself, which I keep surprising myself as I'm learning more and more about these albums, right? Because we all think that all of her songs are about relationships that she has personally been in, but she is a creative as well, and so she has these ideas, and You Belong With Me was one of those.
An imagination,
right?
It's a trope that I am just always here for, unless it's too real, like Your Lie in April, which is an anime that is beautiful and gorgeous and no one should ever watch because it's traumatizing. But there's this, the girl who's always been there for her best friend who's a boy, and she loves him so much, and he doesn't notice. And it gets me.
It gets everyone with a heart,
Yeah.
because I think everyone, if you haven't been in that exact situation, you can relate on
imagine
some level how
very
terrible
easily
that would be.
imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, but she wrote "You Belong with Me" after overhearing a phone conversation with one of the band members where he was getting yelled at by his girlfriend, and she was like, "Why? I have to write a song about this, and I'm going to put myself in the situation of being that girl who loves him."
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yes.
That's wonderful storytelling, honestly.
Exactly. I love how she does that for other people, and I think she does that at least 3 times on this album. One with "Hey Steven," one with "You Belong with Me," and one with "Change," where she's looking at another person and taking on a narrative point of view where she can tell that story really well, because she, as Taylor Swift, doesn't really have a super connectedness, perhaps. I mean, she does know those people, but she's not actually in a romantic relationship with those people, is what I'm trying to say.
Which might make it easier to tell the story in a compelling way.
And in a complimentary way. Like, "You Belong with Me," she's looking at this boy and she's saying, "You're so great. Why are you with her? She's the worst." And then "Hey Steven" is just only compliments all the time.
Yeah.
And
it's
then,
like Stay Beautiful, right?
Yeah. Oh,
it's
man.
just the things we liked about Stay Beautiful are here again in Hey Steven.
Yes. And again,
except that she turns it on its head with White Horse.
but that's not about the same person.
Yeah, but she uses the same image to talk about them both, right? She says Steven looks like an angel.
Oh, you're right.
And then in White Horse, we see that appearances can be deceiving when people look like angels.
It's so true. I mean, if you read it that way, it's really disappointing. But if you take into account that they're about different people.
Yeah, it's just because the arc is so cohesive and intentional, it's really hard for me to take any of these early happy songs in isolation and be like, they're unadulterated in their happiness.
Man.
They're just, because you see where the arc is going, and it's like, oh, I don't want to have these high highs because I know that they're going to crash into low lows, and I, being an adult, can't take that anymore.
I'm too fragile. I can't take it. To our listeners, I just want to tell you that as we were listening to this album through, I thought I had won the whole game. I was like, she's already a Swiftie. When Love Story came on, you literally gasped at the turn when he said, "Marry me, Juliet." And I was like, I got her. I'm a winner.
And if it had stopped after Love Story, it's very possible that I would have totally given in.
And those first 4 songs are 4 of the 5 singles on the album.
Yeah.
And then White Horse comes in and her face fell, and
it's a great song. My face
song.
did not fall because I disliked the material.
No. I want you to be able to listen to Love Story in all its unadulterated beauty, but you can't.
I can't. I see the arc. I feel the arc.
Well, at least you're feeling something.
Right. She made me feel this arc. So if you're going to be mad at somebody, be mad at Taylor Swift.
I could never be mad at Taylor Allison Swift. Do you know me at all?
There's a lot of themes, like the rain and the light theme in this album. I don't know. I feel like they're going somewhere, especially since the rain did carry over from the first album.
Yes.
I assume there's more rain to come.
There is definitely more rain
She
to come.
speaks more positively about rain in this album.
She does. Although I will say we talked about and we've listened to the first 13 tracks on the album. There's a platinum edition that has 6 more songs. One of the songs is "Come In With the Rain," and I would say that one's overall more of like a sad, tired song. You haven't listened to it, so I'm just explaining it to you right off the bat. But the rain is just rain. It's not really like...
It's not happy or sad. It's just weather.
I mean, overall, the song is sad. She's kind of like, she's tired in the relationship. She's leaving a window open for him, and she's hoping that he comes in with the rain.
Oh.
So it is a bit sad.
That's sad, but it doesn't... The rain is a hopeful thing, though, in that situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, in future albums, like especially the one that comes to mind is a track called "Clean," which deals with rain and clean and purity and all of that. So we'll get there. But yeah, it is. You're
just
right.
you talking about it makes me smell the smell of fresh rain, and it's a great smell.
I think it might be raining outside right now, actually.
That'd be nice. Right, but we should talk about "Tell Me Why" because I have thoughts.
Okay.
First of all, the title she shares with the Beatles song.
And I didn't know that until you told me that, because
Which blows my mind.
Me not knowing the Beatles song?
Yes, it does. It's like Whitney Houston all over again in reverse.
It's so true. And I know that the Beatles revolutionized music. I just don't care.
I'm gonna cry.
I like Beatles songs when they're played by other people. I think they're very talented lyricists, and I don't like their song sound. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
She's crying. So anyway, all that to say, I didn't know that they shared a song title. We listened to the Beatles version of Tell Me Why, but you're going to have to remind me more of the themes of that song.
Yeah, Tell Me Why You Cried and Why You Lied to Me. It's peppy. It's a 60s boy band song. It's not musically remarkable except being a bop, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I grew up listening to the Monkees and the Beatles and the Zombies, who are better than the Beatles.
You all see my challenge in making this lovely human a Swiftie. Different times.
We can also think of the Backstreet Boys song, I Want It That Way, where they're like, tell me why.
Oh, yeah. That's a hook.
Don't ever want to hear you say, I want it that way.
Yeah.
It's a sad song, I feel like, overall.
But a bop.
But a bop, yeah. It's cheery, it's catchy. I mean, it's the Backstreet Boys. It is what you would expect from the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, it gets you toe tapping, even if you aren't going to be actually dancing. Right. But they don't actually dance either, so it's fine.
It's not like they're BTS.
No one is BTS.
But that's another podcast.
That's a whole different podcast.
So the Backstreet Boys and the Beatles, both, they're mildly complainy songs.
They're men
They're
saying,
complaints.
Tell me why.
Yeah.
And then Taylor Swift tells them why.
Yeah, and her song is about domestic abuse, or at least a physically abusive relationship.
Right.
And so it's like, if we're going to compare validity of complaints here, I think Taylor wins.
By a landslide.
Yeah. And so I am desperately wondering, like, how intentional was that? Were we meant to make that comparison? Because, like, this is the musical environment in which she's speaking.
I have to agree with you. Just because I personally don't listen to the Beatles doesn't mean anything. They're wildly famous, and they have a song called Tell Me Why. So I'm like, it would make sense to me if she drew that connection a little bit, at least in like naming the song. Because now, you told me, now when you listen to Tell Me Why by the Beatles, you're like, I don't really feel sympathy for them as much,
Yeah, it's Taylor Swift spoke into that situation and changed my perception.
Yeah. And it's
which is a power move.
Right?
Yeah.
I love that she claims things as her own and then she doesn't apologize for it at all. None at all.
Her power as an artist is significant. Like, I know that hater is like a universal term for someone who doesn't like anything else. Like,
yeah.
But for me, it is linked to Taylor Swift. Like, a hater, barring any other context, is assumed to be a hater of Taylor Swift.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't think there's anybody else who has changed vernacular in that way on that level, except maybe Donald Trump. Oh. And let's not get into that.
No.
Yeah. So just Taylor Swift as a phenomenon, like, this is why we're doing the podcast, right? Because she's changed the world. She's changed the artistic environment for everybody.
Yeah, whether or not you're a fan, she literally can go into a city and change the economy. And then that ripples worldwide. It's insane. She is a social phenomenon. That's why the podcast is here. Yes, I like her. Yes, I hope you're going to become a Swiftie. But truly, what?
Yeah, what's going on?
What is happening?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's definitely part of it, where she takes things and claims them as her own.
Which is in the nature of artistic endeavor. Like we talked about the Western canon of literature. Like, you're taking what's been passed down to you and owning it. That's what she does. I feel more vindicated every day in accepting wholeheartedly Catherine Helmick's comparison of Taylor Swift to Dante Alighieri.
Go into that. What do you mean by that?
Just
Wait, who's Dante?
Dante Alighieri.
Am I supposed to know who this person is?
He wrote the Divine Comedy, Inferno. Dante's Inferno, that Dante.
Oh, okay. You gave him a last name, and I was like, what?
Oh, he had a last name in real life.
I just thought he was kind of like Beyonce, which I know she has a last name too, but everyone just knows her as Beyonce. True. And I know Dante as Dante. Anyway,
you're that close. First name basis.
Are we not all close to the ones we read?
We're all close to the Inferno. That's for sure.
All right. Okay. So wait. Okay. So someone was comparing Taylor Swift to Dante?
Yeah. So this was actually in the show notes from last week. So it'll be in the show notes again this week because we're talking about it now. But Catherine Helmick wrote this piece about blank space where she's talking about ordering desires in the human psyche, the human experience. And she talks about the story that blank space tells as Taylor Swift's story, but it's not the story that Taylor Swift experienced. She's the poet. Like there's a distinction when we talk about the song Blank Space.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about Taylor Swift in the song, or are we talking about the Taylor Swift who wrote the song? There's a poet versus...
Oh, right. And that's what Dante does in Dante's Inferno.
Exactly.
He's a character in the story, but he's also the author.
Right. So he's also poking fun at himself for the
Yes.
dumb things that he says in the story, because he's like, wow, that was a dumb thing to say, wasn't it?
Yeah. And we'll get to Blank Space on 1989, but she definitely does that in that song for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's been a feature of her music since the debut album. Like, we didn't talk about Mary's song.
I love Mary's song.
Mary's song is lovely.
Yeah.
And she so specifically and intentionally gives it away.
Yeah.
She says,
in the
this
first
is
line.
Mary's song, not Taylor's song, not our song. But she frames it with just 2 words in the beginning by saying she said. That makes it somebody else's story.
Yeah.
So she's very conscious of what stories she attributes to herself and what stories belong to other people, that she's still writing for them. She's still the poet behind it.
Right.
But she's deciding who she is in the story. What kind of story is hers?
I love that. And now it makes me excited to get you to listen to Folklore and Evermore, which is way later in the discography.
I'm excited for those because I like folk music.
Yes,
And,
I think you're going to absolutely love those. But what she does is she kind of starts blurring the lines between her own personal experiences and folk stories that she's making up and characters that she's making up.
All right, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
But that's not next week. What's next week? Or next episode, 2 weeks from now?
Next episode, 2 weeks from now, we are going into her 3rd studio album, Speak Now. Came out in 2010. I love this album. I was about to do like a whole intro for it. I'm like, this is when I started listening to it, etc. But we'll get there in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Just for kicks and giggles. Are you Swiftie yet?
That's a no.
Ooh, give me a percentage. How close?
Percentage, like maybe 30%.
All right. I'll take a 30%.
I'm an English teacher. It's still a failing grade, but we're getting there.
It's a work in progress.
This has been a DieCast Media Group production. Big thanks to Joseph Rose, our editor, Talitha Rose, our graphic designer, Rebecca Leapline, our media manager, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you soon.